Hello, everybody. All right. Our lovely topic today of teaching a non-public speaking student the difference between a informative and a persuasive speech. Um, First of all, informative speech, you can find the content in your books in chapter 13, persuasive in chapter 14. From the get-go, informative speeches are can be a bunch of different things. Informative speeches can be things on objects. They can be speeches on people. They can be speeches on procedures, events, ideas. Most importantly, in discussing those things, procedures are you're reviewing how something works. An object is information about a certain thing, like a museum, a zoo. People, like you want to describe maybe a historical figure, Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr. Events, like you want to describe Election Day, World War One, World War Two. Ideas, pretty easy. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. Most importantly, what you're doing in the informative speech is there's no real opinion on who's right, who's wrong, much like a persuasive speech would be. Informative speech, you're just informing your congregation, your audience of what exactly is going on with the certain thing that you're talking about. Informative is just what it means. It's to inform of just different topics and whatnot. So most importantly, though, like the book has mentioned, you want to tell a story to really capture your audience's attention, much like any other speech. Ability is going to be built from the start and having credible information and credible information from credible sources will build your informative speech. You also want to be redundant in your speech as well, explaining how something is done or why it's done a certain way, etc. You want to use visuals and nonverbals. Visual aids. I know for my informative speech, I talked about marriage and I used graphs and charts in my PowerPoint presentation to show just different rates of when people are getting married, different ages at different times, explaining divorce rates at certain times, etc. So there was no divorce is wrong or marriage is right or there's only one way. Presenting information unbiased from credible sources to show the bigger picture of just being informant on a topic. You focus on what you want your audience to learn. Again, informative speech is a speech where you're teaching somebody. You're teaching. You're learning by doing this speech, but then you're also increasing someone else's knowledge of that speech as well. Moving forward, persuasive speeches, much different ballgame. Persuasive speech is persuasion. It's first and foremost, you want to talk about the definition of persuasion. That would be changing or reinforcing attitudes, beliefs, values, or behaviors. The big word there would be changing. Again, in an informative speech, you're not changing much of anything. In a persuasive speech, you're aiming to change. In fact, the main goal is that you're aiming to reinforce. It's not necessarily trying to change somebody, actually. You're actually aiming just to reinforce an idea that could ultimately may end up changing that certain, maybe not way they really feel about it, like a point about it, but they may change maybe an attitude that they have about that certain thing. Um, you want to change and reinforce, um, but the big thing in persuasive speech is everyone has beliefs, values, and beliefs are more like a true and false. Values are more of a right and wrong. And attitude towards something. What's your attitude towards it? Uh, Persuasive speeches are built off ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos is credible and ethical. How credible you are, how ethical you are. Your logic, logos, what you bring to the table in your logic. Pathos, your emotion. How do you get someone to really buy into your speech, into your persuasive speech, by being motivating, by being emotional, not so much emotional, but more just like, empowering kind of deal. You want to motivate your listeners and prevent them with new information. The last thing, or one of the very last things the book talked about, was that everybody has a source of needs. To talk about in persuasive speech, the base of those needs are physiological, then social, then self-esteem, then self-actualization. So when you're picking a topic, you want to start everyone's basic physiological, need air to breathe, water to drink, etc. Everyone wants to feel safe. Everyone wants to be part of something that has a social value. Everyone's wants to feel loved and self-esteem. And then just self-actualization. How high can I go? My true self-worth. And most importantly, my last topic, it can be found on page 329. The top three things that really stood out to me for persuasive speeches is a proposition of a fact, proposition of a value, and a proposition of a policy. A fact is true or false. Again, value is if it's right or wrong, good or bad. And a statement that advocates a change in policy or procedure is a policy. So again, persuasive speeches are very different. I'm looking forward to doing my persuasive speech. I know after doing this, it'll help me do brainstorm things and whatnot. So you want to inform your audience. So yes, there is a way of informing first, but then most importantly, going back to what I originally said about persuasive speeches, you want to just try to reinforce an idea and not necessarily trying to change completely someone's point of view or behavior, but you're just trying to kind of reinforce a belief, a attitude, a value to where they might see that differently. So I hope this helps, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks so much.